And this is part 3 of chapter 15, environmental dispute resolution. And we'll just do about three slides here. Um, your author has a has a big section that he labels 4 conditions for settlement, and these 4 conditions are brute force, simple decision rules, fair division, and take it or leave it offer. And in this section, we'll go over the first 2 of these. And here we go, brute force. And here we have a nice picture of somebody. I'm guessing it's an American, American Army, big badass tank gun there. And this is, as your author describes it, and can and often is the remedy of last resort. So when all else fails, get out those guns, and by my force, I will impose terms on you, and we will divide natural capital the way I want to, because I'm the victor in this thing called war. And war is the most primitive and costly means of dividing natural capital, whether that would be um, land or minerals or other things that one party owns, and the other party covets it, and they come to no agreement, or one party is polluting. Although I don't know if polluting is quite the means, quite the criteria for war, but it certainly is the means of dividing up natural capital. Your author does have not necessarily war between nations, but um, just violent means of trying to solve uh, trying to solve disputes. The Oregonian reports arsons, bombings, and sabotage in the name of saving the environment and its creatures have swept the American West over the last 2 decades. Um, so this could be things like driving nails into trees. The reality television show Whale Wars is about activists using acid blockades and other physical means to disrupt whale harvests. A disgruntled environmental activist is allegedly responsible for the 2002 assassination of Dutch politician Pim Fortuyn. One can one can say that the Unabomber was in a way an environmental activist, but in all of these cases, the activists use violent means to cast a light upon the struggle and try to achieve change through violent means. Now, war can often destroy the sought after natural capital. Um, Oil in the Iran-Iraq War, oil was the natural capital, and this is in the Persian Gulf War as well. Um, Iraq decided to burn the oil to keep the Americans and or the Iranians away, and Iran probably did the same thing. So the natural capital itself can itself be burned off. There was a scorched earth policy that the Soviet Union applied when the Nazis invaded in 1941 and just burned the crops. So you're burning the very thing that the other party wants and desires. Now, the consequences of legal battles or war can be motivators to reach a more cordial settlement. And in other words, using war as a threat, the threat of war to bring about negotiation. And your book does say that the use of violence has waned with the advancement of legal authority and alternative resolution techniques, which we'll talk about later in this chapter. And I believe that is it for brute force, and I hope that we will never be using brute force, but being a realist, that is highly unlikely. Now, another means is something called decision rules. And when the stakes are small, parties can acquiesce to decision rules um, to um, to divide up resources or to divide up to divide up resources, or who's going to who who's going to have access to them. And there are all kinds. And your book talks about tradition, rules of thumb, like women and children first, older is wiser, strict adherence to religious teachings, precedent, arbitration, flipping a coin, um, adding some randomness, drawing straws, again, adding some randomness to it. So that would be a proxy for being fair, and first come, first serve. But here's the kicker. The incentive to comply with decision rules is inversely related to the size of the stakes. So in other words, as the stakes get larger, there's less of an incentive to comply with these very simple decision rules that are almost maybe culture or tradition based, or even an element of randomness involved. Okay, this ends our third section because the fourth section, fair division, is a pretty big section, so I want to devote an entire slide section to that.